jump into your running back love-hates for this week. Start with love on the positive
we
side.
got a graphic.
There we go.
A graphic and a sound effect. Really Get better than that.
Comes in quickly.
Very
All right.
quickly.
In your love side, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Why do you love them?
Well, no Devontae Adams for the first thing, right? Okay, and we've talked about this throughout the preseason, but there were 7 games in which Devontae Adams did not play, and Aaron Rodgers did in the Matt LaFleur era. In those 7 games, Aaron Jones had basically a 20% target share, averaged over 25 fantasy points per game, basically 20 touches a game. 25 points a game last year would have been the number 1 running back in fantasy. So he's always been productive. He averages about 5 targets a game without Adams. So we expect, heavy passing game usage for Aaron Jones. Think about A.J. Dillon, I should say. 2 games against the Vikings last year, over 80 yards in both of them, averaged 19 fantasy points per game in the 2 games against the Vikings. Also, by the way, which we're not bringing up in the Roto World headlines here, but Allen Lazard, not a sure thing. He showed up on the injury report yesterday as well. So all of a sudden, you've got no Devontae Adams. There's a chance that Allen Lazard either doesn't play or is less than 100%. They're talking up Sammy Watkins, and it feels a little bit like where you're trying to talk themselves into it. Like, hey, Sammy Watkins was good once.
He's great.
He's good for one big week.
Yeah.
He is usually, right? Usually like week 1. He's awesome, and then, you don't hear from him again. But playing Minnesota, in Minnesota, it's always a tough place to play with a crowd. My expectation here is it's a heavy run game, especially given the receiving core being banged up. Both guys going to get a lot of work in a game in which they're going to want to control the clock and try to take the crowd out of it.
Awful rushing defense from Minnesota last year. That's something where you can pick holes in. And then I think this Green Bay offense is going to look a lot like it did in that Thursday night game against Arizona last year, where Devontae Adams was out. Allen Lazard was out for that game as well. And in that game, A.J. Dillon, he led the team in rushing, and Aaron Jones led the team in receiving. And I think that those two are going to be the workhorses in this offense, more so than the great Sammy Watkins, who everyone always talks themselves into. And also the Packers are favourite in that game, which surprises some people because it's in Minnesota and there's lots of love about your Minnesota Vikings, who you adore. But the Packers are favourites, so expect that they'll be running the ball. Now, another guy you love, which was a little bit surprising to me, just because you like Ezekiel Elliott so much, but Tony Pollard popped up on the love.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love Ezekiel. Look, I don't love or hate players. I love or hate their ADP. And I always felt that Ezekiel Elliott, given what we thought was what we believe, what I know is a heavy workload coming for Ezekiel Elliott. Heavy workload. So I just thought, having said that, I don't think he gets a heavy workload this Sunday night against the Buccaneers. Right? Tampa Bay is really stout up the middle against the run. We know there's some questions around the offensive line for Dallas. They're banged up at wide receiver. We don't expect Michael Gallup to play in this game, or at least be limited. See what you get out of Noah Brown and Jalen Tolbert. Is he maybe not ready for prime time? You're going to get a ton of CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz, of course. But my expectation here is that Tony Pollard, who averaged over 70 scrimmage yards per game in 2021, gets a big game here. Okay, Tampa Bay. They allowed the fewest rushing yards to running backs, and Zeke struggled against them last year in this game. But they did allow the second most receptions to running backs. And that's the way I think that you have to attack Tampa Bay, obviously, especially if you've got an offensive line that's going to struggle against that D-line of the Bucs, is like you're going to try to get them in the flat, try to get the ball out quickly and take advantage of Tony Pollard's speed. I think you'll see him used in the receiving game. He did that a lot in college. So, yeah. I have Tony Pollard as, a mid-tier flex this week, running back 26. I think he could get even higher than that. I do like Tony Pollard this week. I think it's a big Tony Pollard week for Tampa Bay. Against Tampa Bay, I should say.
I think we're going to see teams just give up on running the ball against Tampa Bay up the middle, much like the game against the Colts last year, where Frank Reich just threw the ball, I think, 21 times in a row when he had Jonathan Taylor in the backfield and just never ran him because the Bucs' run defense up the middle is so intimidating. Whereas Pollard, he gives you a bit more of the home run threat, where Tampa Bay's not the team that you want Ezekiel Elliott running up the middle to grind out 4 yards, because he's going to grind out 1.5 yards.
That's correct.
You want the high variance. You want the home run swing. That's Tony Pollard. Okay, switching over to the hate. David Montgomery from Chicago. I think we're okay on overall just because of the volume, but I think this week you don't like him.
Listen, I think yes, if the volume is guaranteed, I don't know that it is. I think at some point this might be a committee with Khalil Herbert. But the concerns here are the offensive line. Coach Garrett was on the show earlier. He's been at Bears training camp. A lot of the Bears coaches obviously worked, including Eberflus, worked for Garrett. And so, he's pro that team, and even Jason Garrett, literally the nicest man on the planet and one of the most positive people you'll ever meet, was just like, the offensive line's a work in progress.
Yeah,
the offensive line is going to struggle, and it is. It's very potentially the worst offensive line in football. Niners are a 7-point favorite. We expect them to be trailing in this game. Montgomery gets used in the passing game some, but not a ton. Remember, he had 20 receptions last year. 21. Now he missed some time, obviously, but it's not like he ain't Austin Eckler. You understand what I'm saying in terms of his usage in the passing game? When he sees fewer than 20 touches, and I think there's a chance he sees fewer this week, he averaged 11.6 fantasy points per game. Niners allow the second fewest yards to opposing running backs last year. I don't know. Montgomery makes me super nervous this week for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, second lowest rushing yards per carry to running backs, second only to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, I mean, the flaw with the Niners last season defensively was that they were just giving up these bombs deep down the field because of the problems in the secondary. Their rushing defense has been rock solid. Okay, let's jump into quickly Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I priced as a -300 favorite to appear on the hate section of this column just because it feels like he's going to make multiple apperances.
He is.
Why don't you like him?
That was a good line, by the way. Very good
cashed.
Line. 100%. And you still would have cashed.
Yeah.
Look, I just, first off, he wasn't good last year. Can we just start with that? He wasn't good last year. 2 games. He had 2 games last year where he got more than 1 red zone carry. Like, they just don't use him down there. And you're like, he's the pass-catching back. But he had a that decimal's important. He had a 7.4% target share. Among running backs that played at least 10 games, that was 41st. Like, they're not really using him in the passing game. They're not using him in the red zone. Like, what do we like about this guy? Because I don't know if all these running backs will be active. My assumption is that one of them's a healthy scratch, but Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, Rojo, Ronald Jones, at least 2 of those guys are going to be there active and being used. And so I think this is a 3-headed running back by committee and not an easy matchup on a team that's going to be pass first, which is what the Chiefs are. No thank you. I have them, just barely inside my top 30 CEH and would avoid them if I could.
A lot of pessimism about the Cardinals overall, but I mean, they were an 11-win team last year that was in the mix for the 1 seed, and now their win total's at 8.5. They're underdogs to make the playoffs, and a lot of that is because of the defense, but it's because of the secondary and the fact they don't have any cornerbacks. They're actually the 6th best team in terms of rushing defense last season. So I think that, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, even in the best of situations, might not be able to get it done, and in the worst of situations, even less so.
That was the nicest thing anyone's ever said about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Hey, you know what? You can find my love-hate column, my rankings, my preseason rankings, my week 1 rankings. And it's not just me, but it's Denny Carter, it's Pat Doherty, it's Roto Pat, it's Pat Corain, it's Lawrence Jackson, it's the entire Roto World team, Kyle Dvorak. Go to rotoworld.com, NBCSportsEdge.com to check it out. Here's the best part. It's all free. My rankings, my love-hate, my 100 facts, all free. Free. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Roto World, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.